Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar sponsored by Born Capital. I'm Dan Phillips, and I'll be your host for today's session. Please allow me to introduce our panel. First, Jan-Peter van Vincen. After cutting his teeth at PwC, JP transitioned to Randstad, where he held various divisional CFO roles over the last 18 years. Welcome, JP. And our second guest is Anders Leo-Lindberg. Prior to becoming an internationally recognized expert in finance business partnering, Anders spent over 13 years in various leadership positions within finance at AP Moller Maersk. And lastly, Wouter Born, who has had multiple successful exits as a CFO Tech entrepreneur. Wouter wants to share his experiences with other emerging CFO Tech founders and formed Born Capital to do just that. Wouter, I'm going to pass the controls on to you, sir, for your preamble.
Thanks, Dan. So today we're going to discuss, initially with me and then together with the panel, what is CFO Tech? Why is it an interesting asset class from an investment perspective? And basically to start with that, what is CFO Tech? Well, I think probably most important, it's an enabler for finance transformation. It's technology that supports it. In the end, finance transformation is a management process to happen. Another thing of CFO Tech is it serves the office of the CFO to become more strategic and more efficient. A little bit more about the office of the CFO on the next slide. CFO Tech is now generally considered as a subcategory of FinTech. But it's quite a massive market, and it really has its own aspects. You know, FinTech is more for the financial services industry. This is a much more corporate use case. So we adapted to the term CFO Tech to basically give the category its own name it deserves. Later on a little bit on the market size, but I think you will get me there. So what is the office of the CFO? It's basically everyone that reports to the CFO. What you see in large companies that there's actually a lot of departments, up to 10 that all will report to the office of the CFO. In mid-market, it might be what we see here. And in smaller companies, it might be just the controller and the treasurer or maybe someone of FP&A together with the controller, depending on how they organize it. But it's basically office of the CFO. When we talk about it, it's the CFO plus all its direct reports and the departments that fall under that. Well, today we're going to share a couple of trends with you that describe why this market is so interesting from an investment point of view. Why is the software tech market so interesting? And the first trend I'd like to share with you is that actually recently there's been a big increase in terms of how many discrete roles report to the CFO. And part of that is because departments like M&A and procurement that were historically reporting to the COO are now becoming part of the office of the CFO. So the CFO is expected to become more strategic, delivers more business value. Some people say, he needs to turn into a profit center and not a cost center. And that leads to the fact that he gets much more strategic functions in his under his responsibility. Research shows that the number of companies with a COO are actually rapidly declining. Only 36% of the SP 500 still has a COO. You'll see part of it goes to IT with an IT manager being directly in the executive board. Other companies have it differently solved, but we see a clear trend of the CFO getting much more under his belt. What that means for CFO Tech and for the market, that the total addressable market is quickly increasing and will become much more strategic in nature. We're not counting beans anymore. No, we're creating value with the office of the CFO. Well, if you talk about CFO Tech, there's a lot of ways how to look at it. We can look at technologies like artificial intelligence, like RPA and those kind of things. I choose to start off these categories because they typically fit somewhere under a department. A lot of these departments actually have overlapping processes. Something like procure to pay, which starts with procurement and ends with accounts payable. Or record to report is also a process that starts with someone entering a journal entry somewhere down in a company and might end with the board report. Traditionally, companies were doing this all with one solution. But you see more and more point solutions, best of breed solutions coming up. And my next slide, we'll talk a little bit about this more. We see it moving from point solutions to, from a one big platform, maybe an ERP, to much more point solutions as a trend. So I think, the next trend I'd like to discuss with you is CFO enterprise features. Well, let's say it like this. CFO Tech was traditionally mainly developed for enterprises. The amount of companies that were using a planning tool 20 years ago that was just limited to the real big enterprises, public companies. Nowadays, you see planning functionality or planning tools all the way down to SMB. This trend creates opportunity for startups. I'd like to share two examples with you that come from our own Born Capital portfolio. These are, let's just start with one from the Born Capital portfolio. It's Keeper. Keeper is a financial close solution, and it fits probably in the market like Blackline, Trintech, Flowcast. This is a solution. These kind of solutions are typically only used by large enterprises. What Keeper does is, they replicate the same functionality, but they focus on accountancy offices or bookkeepers to collaborate with an SMB, with their final customer. So instead of focusing on a whole group of corporate team members, here they actually created a use case for SMB. Which is which is very positive. So if we look at the total CFO tech market, and that's what I meant earlier with it's a category on its own. Just to break it down a little bit, Gartner expects that the total enterprise software market is 557 billion in 2022. That's a massive market. Based on various sources and our own insights, we expect that roughly 3% of this market are best of breed Office of CFO solutions. What that means, that excludes our ERPs, which is a much bigger market. That might be 15% of this number, but we only focus with CFO Tech on best of breed or point solutions. In 2025, the CFO Tech market will be 25 billion if we follow the normal growth rate that Gartner expects. It might go even faster for CFO Tech because we see on all these trends that there is a very positive trend towards this software. 25 billion sounds maybe like an abstract number, but to put it in perspective, the HR software market is currently around 9 billion. So this is significantly bigger than other parts of enterprise software. Well, if you look at our third trend, and that's about cloud. Actually, in the office of the CFO or any software for the office of the CFO, a lot of on-premise software is used. And until today, finance has been the slowest mover towards the cloud. And currently the penetration is about half of the total enterprise software market. This comes because finance has been very risk averse. The data, your financial close is a very critical process, cannot go wrong, and it contains highly classified data. So finance has been hesitant to move to the cloud. But with the cloud improving and lowering costs and giving much more options for better security, stability, and continuity, cloud becomes rapidly the best alternative out there. the cloud penetration is moving really fast. Legacy vendors might miss the boat. And with legacy vendors, I'm typically talking about Oracle or SAP, and they might not be able to follow this trend to the cloud, because they have a lot of on-premise customers that if they change to a cloud tool, they might look at other companies and see what's out there. Companies being created today, like the companies where we're talking about as an investment category, the companies that are created in 2021 will benefit tremendously from this trend because they can develop native cloud solutions. The legacy vendors in general, and I found this data on an IDC report and McKinsey. Roughly, if we look at the CPM market, which is just one part of CFO Tech, you know, it's a component from it. But there we found some interesting market data that the three legacy vendors together own about 47% of the market, where the rest of the market, where a lot of new players are, a lot of challengers, are currently 53%. But if you look at the trend, if you take these compound annual growth rates, extrapolate them to the future, you see that the market share will move towards challengers, away from the legacy vendors. That means for the companies that we invest in today, in CFO Tech companies, that there is a massive opportunity to jump on this. These legacy companies have lots of years of technical debt and have outdated architectures. Companies that are being created today will have business models that are completely, COVID-proof as well. You know, like if you take the COVID situation, companies being created today have COVID-proof business models, created functionality for a distributed workforce. They have 2021 architecture, no technical debt. So they will be able to move fast in this market, and they also can embed much quicker innovation with functionality like artificial intelligence or RPA, where for the incumbents that's more challenging. So to end up my part of the presentation, I'd like to share just 3 success cases of companies we've recently seen. I think, you know, these companies all started not that long ago. OneStream, founded in 2010, they've been recently valuated at $6 billion and are probably lining up for their IPO next year. So it's possible to an investment today, if you make the right one and pick the right company on the right winner, to materialize within 10 years. And that makes it very interesting because there's a lot of value creation that can happen. Dan, I'm going to pass it on to you now.
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. Before we start, I want to let the audience know that we've opened up the Zoom chat box for Q&A. So please send any questions you might have for the panel to me. And if time permits, we'll cover off on those. Otherwise, all the questions will be answered in an email to the registrants with the link to this recording after the webinar is over. What I'd like to kick off with is a question to Anders about the factors necessary for successful implementations for CFO Tech. Anders, can you share with us your experience that you've seen and kind of how that resulted within the Office of the CFO?
Absolutely, Dan, and thanks for asking. So I wanted to share two data points with you. The first is a survey by Protiviti. They made this back in 2018, where they asked senior finance leaders and CFOs, are you happy with the return that you're getting from your finance teams? Specifically, they were asking about FP&A, as Wouter showed, which is one part of the finance teams. And 71% said, we're not happy with the output we're getting. We feel we have invested a bit in you, but you're not delivering back to us. This was 2018. I made a recent survey on LinkedIn. You can always argue if surveys on LinkedIn are valid or not, but my network consists of finance and accounting professionals. So I asked, what's stopping us from creating the future of finance and accounting? I asked mindset, process, and technology. 62% said it was the mindset. So this is people themselves saying it's the mindset that's getting in the way. Now we are of course talking about technology, and how does these two data points relate to that? Well, it's the fact that CFOs are not happy with what they're getting, but they know they need to get something, and people know it starts with themselves. This awareness was not there 5 to 10 years ago. So we invested a bit, not knowing what to get out of it. Now we know we need to invest, and we are ready. People know, well, we need to start changing. We need to buy into the new trends that are coming that Wouter also showed. So we are ready. So what this tells me is that the CFO tech market is now ready to take off, and people know it, and they're ready for it as well.
And what kind of results do you see, Anders, with the folks that have adopted that mindset, and that they've understood the maturity of the technology that's available, and they've gone ahead and done some implementations? What do you see as kind of the biggest benefit that they get out of that implementation? Is it time? Is it efficiency? What do you think?
So I think a critical point for CFOs is that they're not going to get money from anyone else. They have to free up the time and resources to invest in the finance team. And the absolute best way to do this is through technology. We've seen in the past 10 years that they tried through offshoring and outsourcing, and it definitely gave some room to invest. And they're going to invest this into the technology piece and their people right now, which is what's going to make this take off. We say about the future of finance, it's enabled by technology and driven by people. The people cannot do it alone. They need the technology to support them. So I think this is key. And what I see when you look at high-performing finance organizations, they're both efficient and effective. And the best way to be efficient is through technology. It's very difficult to be effective without also being efficient. That's what all data shows. So I think it just speaks into the fact that we need to be enabled by technology to succeed.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. The one other thing that's crossed my mind is the whole notion of taking a different look at processes. And I'm thinking of more of the acronyms that we throw around, R to R for record to report, O to C, ordered cash, and procure to pay, P to P. These new kind of end-to-end process approaches tied to the technology that supports them, I think also makes for some different ways of looking at the whole overall organization and the process itself. If you've got any comments on that, maybe you can share with us.
So I think, and just to share another data point, so Accenture released a report earlier this year called CFO Now, where they said that the rate of automation of these processes that you're mentioning, Dan, had gone from 34% in 2018 to 60% in 2021. That's a massive change, and that change is happening now, right? So that tells you that the CFO tech space, almost regardless of what process you're in, it's happening now, and of course, in the years to come. And it is critical that we automate and improve the output and the efficiency of these processes, not just to get time and save resources, but to enhance the insights that the finance team can bring to business leaders to help them make better decisions. It's not just about automations, it's as much about enhancing the insights that we can get. And you can throw in a robot to run it more efficiently, or you can throw maybe some more sophisticated tools to actually get more insights out of the process. And I'll definitely advocate for the latter, although you might need the RPA to free up for investing more into the more sophisticated tools.
Awesome. JP, I wonder, in your roles at Ronstadt,
Yeah.
can you give us some examples of successful deployments of Cfo Tech and kind of what the resulting impacts were to the organization?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I picked up some of the conversation just now. And although my tech didn't work, I am a big fan for technology, especially in the finance function. I had some concrete examples in my recent experience in Portugal and also in the US. We had some big administrative backlog in our payroll department, and together with our CFO, we developed a robot. And we're able to reduce a significant backlog of around 20,000 files in like a couple of days, to really refocus the people in just handling paperwork to like more the added value stuff. So that's a very good example of putting technology to work. And the other one, which is even more appealing in my view and even more successful, was the implementation of a collection software tool, whereby my people previously were sending letters, reminders, emails, etc. themselves. And by putting the automation to work, they could spend time in truly collecting the money. And through that, we reduced the DSO from 100 days to 70 days. And the improvement is still going on after I left. These are just two good examples of using technology to become faster and having your people dedicated to much more, let's say, added value work rather than just suffering from administrative work.
Wow, knocking 30 days out of the DSO that's major. I mean, that's 25% of the 120 days. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Or
And also the engagement of the people by using the technology initially led for some confusion and worry, but once they saw it work and once they saw the success, also the engagement of the people improved dramatically.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. When you're having that kind of success, it's very motivating, right, to the team. What about, you had mentioned about the bot in Portugal? Yep. Are there any other examples that maybe you had that were also at the regional or HQ levels?
In many countries right now, we are making serious steps with RPA. We have a big center in the US. We have a big center in the Netherlands. And through that, we see the improvement by just standardizing the work, and it also helps avoiding errors. But it's a big step we're making in RPA, and also there we see change of work first. That's what's currently happening. Yeah.
I think we have yet to see all the benefits that RPA can provide. Anders, what do you think about that?
I mean, I guess my main comment is win-win-win, right? It's a win for the company, it's a win for the staff, and it's a win for the bottom line, right? I mean, everyone wins on this, and I think the path to a positive and later on sky-high return on investment in some of these tools is very short, right? It's not like the big scale ERP implementation that we saw in the zeros and maybe a bit in the last decade as well, where the return to investment, the time before you got your money back was very long, and maybe you never got your money back. But with these tools here, and with the cloud that Wouter shared earlier, the time to get your money back is very short, and the return on investment is really high.
Yeah, I think that's in direct opposition to days gone by where those investments were huge and the ROI took forever if you achieved it at all.
Exactly.
So let's take a second and move back to the COVID question, Wouter. You had touched on this in your presentation. Can you give us some more insights on how you see Cfo Tech as it relates to kind of the rest of the world?
Sure. Let me give more the macro answer, and then we can learn more from Anders and JP what they see in the real world. But I think in general, when you look at economic downturns, and we very recently experienced one, it's common to see that people save on certain things. And in case of COVID, it might have been travel or other things. And then spend more on tech, because what tech gives them is an ability to work more efficient, to digitally collaborate. In the case of COVID, you know, you have a distributed workforce, so you actually can use tech implementations. Maybe initially it's a little on hold, but after you've overwon the first couple of months, companies are investing in technology and also in CFO Tech. But I'd love to hear from maybe JP how he experienced this in his company in Randstad. JP, you're muted.
Yeah, am I there again? Yeah, I clicked on the mute button. There's my automation. I couldn't unmute myself. Well, Wouter, I agree. Companies have seen the benefits of using technology in simple solutions, but also more complicated solutions, sometimes like RPA. They see the benefits. They see, that the time to deal with tasks is reducing, and that people can be redirected to more added value work. That can be in accounting, that can be in administration, but it can certainly be also in controlling. Taking away the standard work and let it do by a computer that redirects time to more added value stuff. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Anders, just give a quick summation on that too, if you would, please.
Yeah, so what COVID did was that it thrusted the finance teams into the center of attention in the company. Business leaders said, I don't know what's happening. Tell me what's happening. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Bring me visibility into what's going on, right? So finance teams, they were hugely busy and overworked and just trying to figure out what to do. And honestly, the systems that they had couldn't support it. So what did they do? They reverted back to Excel, right? So they sat in all these Excel sheets trying to figure out what they could do. That's obviously not sustainable. So we have seen what happens when you pressure test the finance team in such a situation. They're not able to deliver because they're not enabled well enough by technology. So I think that's just, COVID has just really put another accelerator on the desire to do more in the CFO tech space. So I think it's just another boost to this trend that we're seeing.
Well, I appreciate that, and especially the point about stress testing. I want to thank you guys for your time today and your expertise and knowledge. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. I also want to let our audience know that I have collected up the questions. I know we're out of time, but I've collected up the questions from the chat box, so we'll be providing some answers back via email. The founders here at Born Capital have all earned their stripes in the trenches, and I think you've gotten a lot of that today. They've succeeded where many people have failed with CFO Tech as entrepreneurs. And given their knowledge of the industry combined with the maturity of today's technology, we believe that we're on the cusp of a new wave of solutions that will provide incredible value to customers and shareholders alike. Born picks the best and brightest angel and seed stage companies, applies their experience, knowledge, and of course, capital, thereby accelerating their performance well ahead of their competitors. Based on what you've learned today, I hope you agree that now's the time to be investigating the potential of CFO Tech, one of the fastest growing segments of the FinTech market. Thank you, everyone.